Namaskar. Today is the 9th day of the workshop on Sanskrit drama. For the first 7 days, we discussed 7 plays beginning from Bhasa to Murari, covering a time span of almost one and a half millennium, or at least 1000 years of the development of Sanskrit drama. Yesterday we discussed Chaturbhani, or the 4 well-known Bhanas. So all in all, we have taken up 11 plays so far during the 8 days, and today we will be taking 2 more plays, Bhagavad Ajjukam and Matta Vilasam. With this we are walking again in a different arena of Sanskrit drama, and it's a very enchanting area of Sanskrit, of the world of Sanskrit drama. It has not been an easy task to talk about the great plays of Sanskrit, and especially when the constraints of time are there. A lot of uneasiness prevails upon the speaker. Perhaps you might be realizing that. Happily today, and actually from yesterday onwards, we are moving towards the world of Bhanas and Prahasanas. Today we will be taking up 2 Prahasanas. We already covered 4 Bhanas yesterday. So we are moving in an area, the area of Bhanas and Prahasanas, which are the forms that lead us to somewhat easiness, an easy way of life. With this, the question that comes to my mind, how to attain easiness in life. And this is not an easy problem. To remain easy is perhaps the most difficult thing. And the 2 Prahasanas that I propose to take up, as it appears to me that both of them address the same issue, how to attain easiness in life. And both of them refers to various sects, various philosophical and religious sects, and there are Pashupatas and Kolas, and Vedantic sadhana is also referred. So in our whole tradition, perhaps this is the vital question, is how to attain the emancipation or how to attain the perfect equipoise in life. And these 2 prasanas also, perhaps they are addressing this question in their own way. And there is a sect, Sahajiya Sampradaya. So there is no time to discuss this sect and this path of life, the path for imagination, which is the path for emancipation, which was named as Sahaj Sadhana. So the sadhana, or the spiritual pursuit, which leads the sadhak towards Sahaj, towards a state of complete easiness. So this question again we will perhaps address at the end of this lecture, whether actually these prasanas lead a way to attain the easiness or the state of remaining sahaja in life. Second important thing for the lecture today is the philosophy of laughter, the philosophy of hasya rasa. And it is a very serious philosophy. Again, just as it's a difficult question, or one of the most difficult questions, how to attain easy way of life, or how to remain easy, how to remain in the state of easiness. In the same way, the philosophy of laughter is a very serious philosophy. And as Abhinavagupta tells us, that a person who can laugh at himself is more liberated than those who are laughing at others. So you may laugh in your life, but you should have courage to laugh at your own self. So a Paramhansa or a Aghori sadhak he can laugh at it, at himself. A great poet, he can laugh at himself. Mandah kavi yasha prarthi gamishyam upahasyatam. So Kalidas doesn't actually want to become a laughing stock, but he sees himself that if I pursue that way only for fame and name and fame, if I write, then people will be laughing at me. So he is seeing himself becoming a laughing stock. So a person who can see himself this way and who can laugh at himself is a liberated person. He can be a liberated soul. So this question again, if there is time, we will discuss whether the characters of the two plays that we will be discussing today, whether they are laughing at themselves or whether they are laughing at others, and whether they are liberated or whether they reach a state of easiness. So some difficult issues are there. Otherwise, the Prahasana is a form of Sanskrit drama which is written in a very light vein, and there are two types of Prahasanas. There are two types of Prahasanas, Shuddha and Sankirna. So Shuddha Prahasana, in Shuddha Prahasana, the laughter comes out of situational positions, out of the situation. The situational humor creates the farce or Prahasana. And if some character, by his language, by his gestures, or even by his vulgarity, tries to create laughter in the audiences, then that is Sankirna Prahasana. That is not supposed to be a very good kind of, a very good way of creating laughter. If situational humor is there, that the situation turn out to be so that the audiences or the persons involved there itself, they start laughing. What to do in this situation except laughing? So we go to slide number 2. The names and authors of these two plays, Bhagavad Ajyukam and Matta Vilasam. These are the two plays, the earliest of the Prahasana literature in Sanskrit. Bhagavad Ajyukam is the perhaps, not perhaps, but definitely the earliest available Prahasana in Sanskrit. And the author is supposed to be Bodhayana. I have put a question mark after Bodhayana in brackets because, like Kundamala, we do not know whether the author of Kundamala is Dingnag or Dhirnag or Veernag. And the authorship, the name of the author remains unsettled. In the same way, Bodhayana is said to be the author. In some manuscripts, Bodhayana Kavi Rachitam, Bhagavad Ajyukam Prahasanam. This is written in the beginning or in the end also. But it is doubtful whether really a Bodhayana was there who wrote this Prahasana. We will discuss this question. The second Prahasana that we will be taking up today is Matta Vilasam by Pallav King Mahendra Vikraman. There are no such controversies about the authorship, the name of the author. Of course, there are scholars. There are modern scholars always raising some question that a king cannot write a Prahasana. They know everything. They know about the king, so they say that the kings cannot write the Prahasana. The Western scholars, because the culture is different. In their culture, a king is supposed to rule ruthlessly. He is engaged in politics. He doesn't have time for arts and literature. In our tradition, the kings are advised to practice Shastras. They are advised to practice Vedangas and Shiksha, Kalpa, Nirutta, Jyotish, Chand and Vyakaran. These are the 6 Vedangas. So Chandas, the meters, learning poetry and its meters, its rhythmic patterns, is a Shastra. Everybody in the Vedic line, whether he is a Kshatriya or a Brahman, he is supposed to learn 6 Vedangas. And the kings, if they are learning Chandas, then they are inclined towards poetry. So there are many kings who are writing voluminous epics, voluminous works, King Bhoja and King Harsha. But Western scholars say that these plays by Harsha, ascribed to Harsha, they are not by Harsha, the king. Some protege of Harsha wrote those plays for him, And King Bhoja couldn't have written as many as 64 great works, so all they are fake authorship. Some others have written on his name, so such things are aired. So in our tradition it is possible for a king to engage in literary pursuits, to listen to the poets, attend the Kavi Goshtis, etc. As Rajshekhar informs us, Pallav King Mahendra Vikram Varman was a lover of poetry, and he was a protector of poets, and he was a protege of poets and literatures, and he wrote in inscriptions. We have his descriptions, and he is described as a great lover of literature also. Then this slide number 3 I have covered that two types of humor are there: prasana of situational humor and prasana of Sankirna type, where the characters of low category try to create humor and laughter by their funny activities, by language and gestures. This was slide number 3. Then the question about the title of Bhagavad Ajjukam. It's a bit queer type of title, the name of the play. So we go to slide number 4. What does Bhagavad Ajjukam mean? So Bhagwan or Bhagavat is the Pratipadika, and Bhagwan will be its declension to be used in the sentence. So Bhagwan means ascetic, Parivrajak or ascetic, a wandering monk you can say. And Natya Shastra says that the Parivrajaka or sannyasis should be addressed as Bhagwan in a play. In Sambodhan, in address, it will become Bhagwan. So in Hindi, Bhagwan is the word. In Sanskrit, Bhagavat is the word. So Bhagwan is Parivrajak or ascetic. And everywhere in this play, the Parivrajak, the wandering monk or ascetic, is addressed as Bhagwan. Ajjuka means a courtesan, a Ganika. So Bhagwan and Ajjuka, it's a play about Bhagwan and Ajjuka, Parivrajak and Ganika. So you can translate it the ascetic and the courtesan. There is a Western scholar Van Buitenen, J.A.B. He has worked on Mahabharata also. He has translated this play, Bhagavad Ajjukam. He has given the title The Hermit and the Harlot. This is a simply disgracing title. To translate Bhagwan or an ascetic as hermit is also not proper, because this Parivrajaka is supposed to be wandering throughout. He is not supposed to stay in an ashrama. So a hermit stays in a hermitage. A vanaprastha may be a hermit, but a sannyasi cannot be called a hermit. He doesn't have a hermitage. He is not living at a fixed place. He is a wandering sannyasi, a wandering monk. And it's a disgrace, as I said, to translate Ganika as harlot. Ganika is not harlot. Kama Sutra describes so many categories of Ganikas. Ganika, Vaishya, Kumbhadasi, etc., etc. 7 or 8 categories are described. So harlot is the lowest one. And she may be doing the business with her body. But the Ganika is an artist. And she is a respectable citizen. She is respected as a citizen also. So the main character in this play is a Ganika, but she is not a Vaishya of a low category. She is a danseuse, she is a dancer, she may be a good artist, she has her lover, of course, and she may not be a married lady, she is not married, of course, but she is an artist. So there is a difference we should understand. So if these scholars humiliate our tradition by translating in such disgraceful manner, we have to point it out. They may be very respectable scholars, might have done good work, and of course I will go through the translations of Bhagavad Ajjukam again. There again we will discuss it. Okay, so theme of Bhagavad Ajjukam, very very interesting and unique theme. Transmigration of soul, Parkaya Pravesh. It's the whole comedy or whole situational humor in this play is built up on the idea of Parkaya Pravesh. The Parivrajika makes his jiva or his soul enter into the body of Ganika. Coming to slide number 5, the period of Bhagavad Achyukam. So there is a Man Mandur inscription dated 610 AD, which refers to both of the plays which we are going to discuss today, Bhagavad Achyukam and Mahendra Vikram Varman's Mattavilas Prahasanam. And Dingmatra Darshani, which is the only available old ancient Sanskrit commentary on Bhagavad Achyukam, and perhaps the only commentary so far written on Bhagavad Achyukam, which this commentary attributes the authorship of Bhagavad Achyukam to Bodhayana. A.K. Warder is of the view that Bodhayana is the author of Bhagavad Achyukam, and he is identical with Bodhayana, the Dharma Sutra Kara. There is a Bodhayana Dharma Sutram authored by Bodhayana, and there is a tradition that there is a line of Pandits or commentators who believe that the author of Bodhayana Dharma Sutram and the author of Bhagavad Achyukam, they are identical. The same Bodhayana is writing Dharma Sutra and this Prahasana also. But A.K. Warder adjusts the author of Bodhayana, the date of Bodhayana as 3rd century AD. But that is not acceptable because Dharma Sutras had been written in BC era. S.K. Day and Ramji Upadhyaya hold that the author is Bodhayana, but he flourished in 12th century. That also is an impossible situation, certainly not acceptable, because Man Mandur inscription of 610 AD is referring to Bhagavad Achyukam. So whosoever was the author of Bhagavad Achyukam, he certainly belonged to an era before early 7th century, and he was much earlier. In my opinion, he belongs to 2nd, 3rd century. What happens that in the Prastavana of Bhagavad Achyukam, 12 forms of drama are mentioned, and Nataka Prakarana Samuthani Imani Rupakani. This is what Sutradhara says, that out of Nataka and Prakarana these 10 varieties are generated. So in the 10 varieties, 8 are the same, enumerated in the Natya Shastra of Bharat Muni, Iha Amrag Anka Vithi Samakar Tim, etc. But 2 are additional, Var and Samlapa. And we do not find any mention of Var and Samlapa in the Natya Shastra. Samlapa, of course, is mentioned by the later writers in the field of dramaturgy as an Uparupaka, as one of the minor forms of drama. And Vara is not normally treated in the varieties of drama anywhere, except in the Natya Shastra by Subandhu, which is not available to us. So in my lecture on Bhasa, the first lecture, I pointed out towards the possibility of Bhasa being influenced by Subandhu's Natya Shastra or Druhini's Natya Shastra. And Subandhu's Natya Shastra describes many varieties and many categories which have not been discussed by Bharat Muni in his Natya Shastra. Subandhu flourished in 3rd century, 2nd century or 3rd century BC. He was a minister of King Bindusar. And Subandhu's Natya Shastra described this Vara type of form of drama. And this Bhagavad Achyukam is mentioning Vara and Samlapa, both these 2 types. So the author of Bhagavad Achyukam belongs to a period in which Natya Shastra of Bharat Muni has not been fully accepted. So he deviates from the practices of Natya Shastra in that way. Even he doesn't conform fully to the characteristics of Prahasana as defined by Bharat Muni. So he belongs to a period when Natya Shastra has been composed. Natya Shastra must have come out, but it has not fully established in the tradition. It has not been established fully. So the other tradition of Natya Shastra continues, and it is in practice also. So maybe 2nd, 3rd century. This is the period of the author of Bhagavad Achyukam. Another important evidence about the period of Bhagavad Achyukam is, we go to slide number 7, that there are discussions on various philosophical issues in Bhagavad Achyukam. Bhagwan or the Parivrajaka discusses certain philosophical notions with his disciple, whose name is Shandilya, and there he refers to the Sankhya system, and he doesn't refer to Ishwar Krishna, the author of Sankhya Karika. He refers to an ancient author of Sankhya system, an ancient philosopher of Sankhya system, Varshaganya. So in the Sankhya tradition he is remembered. Varshaganya and Panchashikha referred in Mahabharata, they are ancient philosophers in the Sankhya system. So the author of Bhagavad Achyukam is aware of Varshaganya, but he is not aware of Ishwar Krishna, who is a well-known author. Nowadays he is a part of our curricula in Sankhya. So he belongs to a period again when Ishwar Krishna and his Sankhya Karika have not become so well known. So again this may be the period 2nd century or 2nd or 3rd century. Varshaganya of course belongs to 2nd century BC. So he is definitely after 2nd century BC, and maybe between 2nd century BC and 2nd, 3rd century AD, this author of Bhagavad Achyukam flourished. Coming to the characters of this play, Bhagavad Achyukam, we go to slide number 8. Parivrajaka is the main character, the ascetic. Shandilya is his disciple. Vasansena is a courtesan. We see that the name of the courtesan in Mrithyakatikam is also Vasansena. It's a common name. And we will see later on that there are 2 Vasansenas in the same town. So there is another Vasansena, she is also a Ganika, and this is the Vasansena, the heroine of our play, Bhagavad Achyukam. Ramilaka is her lover. Sutradhara and Vidushaka, they appear in the Prastavna of the play. Very interesting Prastavna. Sutradhara says that I saw a dream that my troupe will be invited by a king. So they are giving their performances in some open area in villages, in melas or in fairs, and they are dreaming that some king will invite them sometimes. So this is interesting dialogue, and then Sutradhara asked what play we should perform out of these 12 varieties. There he names 12 varieties. And Vidushaka says that I do not know prasana, how to create laughter with prasana. So this is also an irony that Vidushaka himself is asking, how to create a humorous situation by prasana, I do not know. So you teach me. Sutradhara says that I will teach you just as Bhagavan is teaching his disciple. So enter Bhagavan and disciple. So in this manner, Prastavna introduces the main characters. So Sutradhara and Vidushaka, these are the 2 characters. Then there is a Vaidya. He is also a part of the whole dramatis personae. Then there is another Vaidya, Sarpa Vaidya. His name is Sundar Gulika. This question mark may be removed. There is definitely a character, because some manuscripts and some printed editions have a reading which give a kind of understanding that there is only one Vaidya. But in the critical edition I could find that there are 2 Vaidyas, 2 Chikitsakas or doctors there. They enter on the stage. Then Yamaduta is there, the messenger of Yama, because the Ganika dies and the Yamaduta comes to take her soul, her jiva. The mother of Vasansena is there, her name is not given. Then 2 maids of Vasansena. There are also female characters. Their names are there, beautiful names, Madhukarika and Parabhratika. These 2 maids. So all in all, these are the characters in the play. We go to the story, and I will try to be brief. The ascetic enters after the prologue and calls his disciple to study. The name of the ascetic, Bhagavan, is not given. Everywhere he is addressed as Bhagavan. He is a sannyasi, so sannyasis have given up all the titles, all the attributes, worldly attributes. So he is simply Bhagwan. He is simply addressed as Bhagwan, and he is a Parivrajaka, no name. Name of the disciple is Shandilya. Shandilya comes from a very poor Brahman family. He is always hungry and he is greedy for food. And every time he is thinking about food and how to appease his appetite and his hunger. And Bhagwan wants him to study. He wants to convince him that if you study, you will be liberated sometimes. So the study this time will help you in future. Shandilya is again asking, what is the use of studying? You are simply trying to make me memorize the stanzas. So what is the use of them? He is doubtful about the activities of his guru. He is always questioning his guru. So this is the scene. From one corner, the ascetic enters and he calls his disciple loudly, and he is complaining that my disciple, nowadays it is difficult to get good disciples, and this disciple of mine, he is not listening to me. From other corner, this Shandilya enters and he is also complaining about his guru. He is Dushta Parivrajak. He doesn't want me to eat food and always talking of studies and about Brahma Jnana, etc. And he narrates the story of his life. So the audiences get the glimpse of his life. So he said that I have been changing sides. I joined some religious sect, sometimes born in a Brahmin family. I joined Buddhist order. I became a Buddhist monk, thinking that good bhiksha is available. You get good food there. So I joined Buddhist order. But there, I got food only once in a day. Only lunch is given in the Buddhist order. So you are supposed to eat only once a day. So then it became impossible for me to stay in that Buddha Matha in Vihara. So I left that Matha, and then I came in the company of this Parivrajaka. Tatastratiyam asya dushtacharyasya bhand bhar gardavah samrakta. Just to see the language. So this is my third place where I have landed. So I joined this Parivrajaka, this Dushtacharya, and I have become a Bhand Bhar Gardava for him. I have just become a donkey carrying the weight of his belongings, maybe his books and his Dand Kamandalu and his attire, etc. So I am just become a sort of Bhar Vahak, or a kuli for him, or a donkey for him. This he is lamenting. And then the ascetic is calling him. They come before each other. There is a discussion. Guru is asking the disciple to study, and Shandilya says that when we will have food, you talk about the alms or the bhiksha. So Bhagwan is telling him that there is a time for everything. This is the time, the morning time is for the study. So just study and concentrate on your study. So Shandilya says, we go to slide number 9. He tells Bhagwan in a very plain language. This is how Shandilya speaks. Namamkosti na bhratrikova pita kuto me bhagvat prasada. I don't have anybody, any kith and kin, and I don't have any brother, nor I have a father. I was an orphan, and I joined you because you will be compassionate on me. I will receive your prasad or kripa. Ekoham anna hatatvena. This is Prakriti stanza in Sanskrit Chaya. So the rhythmic pattern is lost. So I am after food, you see. Annahat. I am annahat. I am always thinking of food. I am hungry always. And because of my greed for food, I became a sannyasi with you. I joined your order and initiated into your order of sannyasa. I also became a parivrajaka with you. So I got this yashti. He is holding a rod, and sannyasi also is holding that yashti. So I am holding this rod, this order I have accepted because of my hunger. to satisfy my hunger. Natu dharma lobhat, not because of dharma. So I am not interested in observing your dharma. He plainly tells him. Parivrajaka scolds him. Shandilya tries to mold the whole yoga charcha in which his guru wants to involve him towards bhoga charcha. They enter into the city garden. They are walking through the street and there is a garden. Shandilya says you should enter the garden and rest for a while. They both enter into the garden. It is morning time and the discussion goes on who is the liberated soul. So the Parivrajaka is explaining the very beautiful descriptions as per the Vedanta tenets he is giving of a liberated soul. But Shandilya questions his credentials. He alleges that you yourself are not really liberated soul because you yourself do not know yourself. So, Atmanam Bhavan Janati Vanava, this is the question he raises. So, outwardly Shandilya appears to be like a Vidushaka jester and appears to be like a fool and he talks that way. But sometimes he raises very vital questions also. And this scene on one corner of the garden, these two are sitting now. They have seated themselves. And from another corner in this same garden enters Vasansena with two of her maids. So Vasansena has an appointment to meet her lover here. And she is waiting for her lover, whose name is Ramilaka. And then there is some time, they are talking, joking with each other, singing, and then Vasansena, when she becomes impatient, she asks one of the maids to go and bring Ramilaka. He is late already. So one of the maids is dispatched to bring Ramilaka. Vasansena is singing a song. Shandilya, instead of hearing the discourse of his guru, he sets his eyes on Vasansena, a very beautiful lady, and he is interested in their talks, what they are talking. He tells his guru, sir, like a cuckoo is cooing, you listen to them. Guru again scolds him. And since they are singing a song, Shandilya very pleased with their song, and he devotes his attention to the song they are singing. His guru is calling him and scolding him, asking him not to listen to the song. It is all Maya, a Sansara Vishaya. He should divert his attention, restrain himself from it. And at this juncture, the messenger of Yama arrives. Meanwhile, this Ganika has been dancing and singing. So all this very beautiful scene, you can perform it. We will go to the performance site also. And this Yamaduta, in his address, which is to be listened by the audience, he informs that Yama has dispatched him. He has been sent by his lord to fetch the soul of one Vasansena. There is some Vasansena, a Ganika here, and I will take her jiva or her soul to Yamaloka. Her days are over. And by chance he lands in this garden, and through their conversation he comes to learn that this is the Vasansena. So he is waiting for an opportunity to take her soul from her body. And when Vasansena is plucking a leaf, a pallava from the Ashoka tree, this Yamaduta assumes the form of a serpent on the branch of Ashoka tree, and she is plucking the pallava from that Ashoka tree. That serpent, who is actually Yamaduta, he bites her. She screams that a serpent has bitten me. She falls down, and as per the Natya Shastra directive, she will perform the person who enacts his death. She swoons first and faints, and then she lies on the ground. The maid, she starts weeping. What has happened to my Ajjuka? Ajjuka is the address for this Ganika. And Shandilya also, instead of listening to his guru, he is seeing this whole episode. And he calls his guru, please help, that lady has died. So Guru says that it is all the worldly drama. People here are born and they die. So this is the practice in the world. What can we do? Her days must be over. I won't revive her. So Chandelier tells him, you are a very cruel person, you should help that lady, she is such a beautiful lady has died. So he also stops weeping, the maid is weeping. So the maid thinks that this boy, the Chandelier, is very compassionate, he appears to be a nice person, and somehow I have to rush to the house and call the mother of my mistress. So maybe something can be done. So he asked Chandelier to take care of the body of Vasansena, request him that you sit here, that somebody may not harm, some bird or some animal may not harm her, and I will rush to the house and bring her mother. Chandelier says, okay, you go, I will take care of the lady. Then Chandelier, because he has seen such a beautiful lady from such a close distance, so he is enamored by her beauty and he tries to touch her. And his guru is very angry. What a nasty thing you are doing, he says. And Chandelier becomes furious that you are a very cruel person. So then Parivrajaka, when he sees that Chandelier is completely has gone out of the way and he should try to treat him somehow. So in order to cure him from his infatuation and from his illusion, he devises this way that he makes a resolve that I will quit my body and enter through Parkaya Pravesh the body of this Vasansena. So he does this. So he enters, his soul enters in the dead body of Vasansena. Vasansena suddenly gets up. But Chandelier is amazed when he exclaims in joy that okay, she is revived. And he approaches Vasansena or the body of Vasansena where now Guru is seated. His soul of Guru is there. So he tries to approach her, tries to touch her out of his joy. And Guru inside the body of Vasansena forewarns him in a stern tone. So if we see this sentence spoken, you see the language of Bhagavad Ajjukam. So the whole play is that the dead body possessed by the soul of sannyasi speaks like the sannyasi. So aprakshalita panibhyam mas prakshi. It should be panibhyam. So don't touch me by your unwashed hands. You should wash your hands first and then touch me. The question of chokshata, the sanctity, the Brahmins always talking of sanctity, that was also raised in the Bhanas we read yesterday, we discussed yesterday. The same thing here, that the sannyasi, he has a consideration always for chokshata and achokshata. So when they are sitting on the ground, he also asking his shishya to see whether it is choksha, whether it's a cleaned ground. Otherwise, if something dirty is there, we will not sit. So Chandelier again tells him that you are always talking of chokshata and achokshata. And here also he said that you are not clean. Don't touch me with your unclean hands. Now, very interesting dialogues then. You see, they are spoken by the characters now. What happens? That Chandelier is shocked to listen this sentence in a very stern tone from the Ganika, who was talking so sweetly till now, and all of a sudden she is talking in such a stern, harsh voice and warning him not to touch. So he says, though, okay, what can I do? She is not speaking to me in a very pleasant manner. I will go to my Guru. And this Ganika addresses him again in the voice of the sannyasi, who actually is talking from her body. Ehi vats adhishvatavat. These are some sentences I have noted on slide number 11. Go to slide number 11. So, Ehi vats adhishvatavat. My son, come and study. So, the body of Ganika is speaking. And actually sannyasi is speaking. So, Chandelier is completely enchanted with that body of Ganika. He say, okay, she is also asking me to study. Then my Guru is a good person that way, so I will go and study with him what a Ganika would teach me. So he returns to his Guru in the corner where Guru is there, but he sees that Guru has fallen on the ground, his body is lying, he is dead. So then he starts lamenting what a good person, what a noble soul he was. And this very interesting sentence he speaks, Ha Bhagwan, etc., etc., he laments, and he says, Evam bahu janantopi mriyante. Such knowledgeable persons also die. There is a kind of very subtle satire also, that you are such a knowledgeable person, a liberated person, but still you couldn't save yourself from the coming death. So, of course, it's out of sorrow, out of grief, he says. And then sometimes he is seeing his Guru, who is dead now, his body is lying there, and sometimes he is seeing the Ganika, who is speaking like his Guru. Meanwhile, the maid who had gone to bring the mother of that Ganika, she comes with the mother. Her mother crying to see, her mother enters crying, and she sees that her daughter is living, her daughter is all right, she is talking, and she rushes towards her daughter to embrace her. So in the same stern tone, the sannyasi in the body of that Ganika warns her not to touch him. So this is the sentence, Vrashal Vradhe ma sprakshi. You, Shudra woman, don't touch me. So the mother is shocked. Mother is shocked and she thinks that she is possessed by some evil spirit. And then she is lamenting what has happened to my daughter. Meanwhile, Ramilaka, to whom another maid had gone to summon to bring, he also arrives and he tries to make love to his darling Vasansena, but Vasansena is not there in the body, sannyasi is there. So when he tries to touch the body of Vasansena, the sannyasi in the body of Vasansena again in very stern, harsh tone asks him, Bhos Tamisra Muchitam Mama Vastranta. Oh, you Tamisra, you are absorbed in Tamo Guna, a low character. Leave the corner of my garment. He touches the fold of her sari or her garment. So sannyasi in the body of Vasansena asks him not to touch again. Then the events take quite a different turn. A Vaidya is called, and Vaidya tries to make some herb or something, and the sannyasi in the body of Vasansena starts questioning him, starts questioning his knowledge of Ayurveda. So he is terrified because sannyasi is a scholar and this Vaidya is a village Vaidya. He is not a knowledgeable person in Ayurveda also. So he says that I will go and bring the Sarpa Vaidya. I can't cure this. She is possessed by some evil spirit, and Sarpa Vaidya may be some Oja type of a Vaidya. She will cure her. And he also departs, this Vaidya. Then the whole situation takes quite a different turn when the same messenger of Yama, Yamduta, again comes on the same spot. And he is in a very pathetic state. He says that Yama rebuked me. And these dialogues I have noted on, slide number 12. He says, Bharsitosmi Yamena. Yama condemned and rebuked me, scolded me. He says that you have brought a wrong soul. She is not the Vasansena I told you to bring. She is a different Vasansena. Because there are two Vasansenas in the same city and both of them are pursuing the same profession. Because Vasansena is a common name for a Ganika, as we see in other places also. So, Anya Vasanta Senayam. Kshiptam Sa Niyatamita. This is a different Vasansena. You take her back and reach the place before they burn her body and return her body to her soul. Return her soul to her body. And Anya Vasansena Sa Kshinayustam Ihanaya. There is another Vasansena in the city. Her days are over. Her age is completed. And bring her Jeev to me. So to rectify the mistake he has committed, Yamduta returns with the jeev of that Vasansena and is approaching the body of Vasansena to put her jeev back in the body, but he sees that Vasansena is talking like a sannyasi. So he is amused with the play. He understands that the sannyasi is playing some game. So he says that I will join the game of Bhagwan. Bhagwan is doing something for the good. So I will become a party to his game. So I will put the jeev of the Ganika in the body of Bhagwan. And then I will do my business and see what happens later. So all this, a wonderful conception, no such conception in the drama we find earlier. What a situation, and what a situational humor. This very absurd situation produces a kind of unique occasion for laughter, for humor. Then the body of sannyasi also immediately is revived. So what happens, that sannyasi is talking like the Ganika. He is approaching, trying to embrace his mother, saying Matah, Matah, and is trying to, the body of sannyasi is trying to embrace the lover of Ganika, Ramilaka. Ramilaka is embarrassed. He is trying to stop the body of sannyasi. Don't do that, don't embrace me. So this question that if the souls are changed, so body is immaterial, the body will function like the soul. So the body of the sannyasi starts behaving like the Ganika. The body of the Ganika starts behaving like the sannyasi. Meanwhile, the Sarpa Vaidya arrives, and now he is put to complete embarrassment by the sannyasi inside the body of Vasansena. He is questioning each and every action of his. He says, what do you know about the Vishas? What type? How many Vishvegas are there? He said, no, I don't know. So sannyasi cites immediately and stranger, Ashtau Vishvega Bhavanti, and these are the 8 types of Vishvegas. Then the whole Vishvigyan, Vishvidya, and Sarp Chikitsa, he starts explaining to the Sarpavedya himself. Then the Sarpavedya is terrified, and he says this very interesting sentence, you see. The dialogues here, you see. So slide number 13. Vayyakarana sarpena khadita bhavet. She must be bitten by a serpent who was a scholar of Vyakarana. Some Vayyakarana sarp has bitten her, and she is not to be cured by him. Nasmakam vishaya. It is beyond my field, and she flies away from there. So all these things are happening. Everybody is confused. It's a play happening in this utter confusion because of this game of the sannyasi and Yamduta joining him. So this utter confusion prevails. The mother of the Ganika is lamenting what has happened. The Shandilya seeing sometimes sannyasi talking like Ganika and the Ganika talking like sannyasi. He is also confused. Then Yamduta re-enters on the spot. He now collected the real body, correct. He now collected the real jiva, whose soul he was asked to bring from the city, and that jiva in his hand, he re-enters on the spot, and he sees the whole confusion prevailing. Then he says that now this should end, enough of it, because they are all bewailing and confused except sannyasi, who knows everything. But that sannyasi is in the body of Vasansena. So he approaches the sannyasi with folded hand. Sannyasi, because of his yogic power, can see him. He requests him that you please end this game. They are all weeping and they are all confused. So end this confusion. So you bring your body by your yogic power from the body of, you bring your soul from the body of Vasansena back, and then I will rectify my mistake by putting the jiva of Vasansena into her body, so that everything is settled again. The world again runs on its line. So the play almost ends. We have this last words spoken by the sannyasi. Now Shandilya is somewhat pacified, his tone changes, and he asks Bhagwan, the sannyasi, what was happening, sir? What was it that happened? So sannyasi says, I will explain it to you later. Now it is evening. So he was hungry, he was asking again and again for the food, and this whole drama went on for 2, 3, 4 hours. It is already evening. So sannyasi says, the sun is setting. So let us go for our evening rites. This is the last stanza. After this, some Bharat Vakya is there. Astangato hi dinkrat gagananta lambi. Musha mukhastiva tapta suvarna rashi. Very beautiful image. Upama. He was a good poet, the author of Bhagavad Ajjukam. So the sun has set, and he is on the last end of the sky, Gagananta Lambi. The simile is Musha Mukhastiva Tapta Suvarna Rashi, as if the heated mass of gold inside the musha. Musha is a pot, a small glass in which the gold is melted. So a special metal is used, a special kind of stuff is used to make that pot. That is called musha. So the goldsmiths were using this musha, a pot, to melt gold. So the sky has become a musha, and the sun is the melting gold inside that musha is disappearing. Yasya prabhaviran ranjita megha vrandam alakshate dahana garbha mivantariksham. Beautiful language and beautiful colors of the whole scenario. By his lustre, by his radiance, the clouds were colored. Clouds by his rays were colored, and Antariksha was appearing as if some fire is burning in the orbit. So this is the whole absurd situation and a unique conception, and the motive of Parkaya Pravesha, which has been utilized by the author, who was a very imaginative, and he must have been a genius, and through that this author of Bhagavad Ajjukam raises some vital issues concerning human destiny, the identity of a human being, and he also raises various philosophical, moral, ethical and psychological issues. So there are various layers and various angles from which you can interpret and see Bhagavad Ajjukam. It's a great classic, even though it is small in size, and it can be performed in 1.5 hours easily. Of course, in Kudiyattam it is very popular, but in Kudiyattam they take months and months to complete Bhagavad Ajjukam. One single play, their style is different. So there is a traditional way of interpreting Bhagavad Ajjukam, which mostly the Kudiyattam people follow. They interpret it as a philosophical and metaphysical kind of play, as an allegory, and there is the commentary Dingmatra Darshini, which discusses the allegory here. So on slide 14 I have noted the stanzas where the commentator has explained the symbol of the symbolizations here. So we read this stanza and we will briefly proceed on this line of interpretation. Asmin natya rase nisarga gahane yogindra shishya ubhau. This is a nisarga gahan natya ras here. A very profound world of rasa and emotion is built up, but that has a philosophical depth. So it is nisarga gahan. Yogindra shishya ubhau atmanau parajiva bhed kathitau. The first and second line combined. So Yogindra, the Parivrajak, is a yogin also. He is an ascetic, a wandering monk, and a yogi. So Yogindra and his disciple, both of them, they are two kinds of consciousness, Atma and Jeev. So Atman is a liberated soul, and Jeev is a consciousness in bondage. So the disciple symbolizes Jiva, and the Guru, Yogindra Parivrajak, symbolizes a liberated soul, Atman. And Tathaiva Ajjuka Mooladhara Samudgata Sushishira Nadi Sushumna. This Ajjuka, the Ganika, is the Sushira combined with Sushumna, which rises from the Mooladhara. So all the tantric view of human body. And Pare Chetyu Chobhay Parshvage, the two other female characters in the play, the Cheti is or the two mates. Chetyu is dual number, Dvivachan. Ubhay Parshvage, on both the sides of this Sushumna Sushira Nadi, which is Vasansena, they are Ida Pingale. They are Ida and Pingala. Then next line says Avidya Ganika Mata. Ganika Mata is Avidya, Maya. And Moho Ramiluko Mata. Ramilak is Moha or illusion. Vedyau Kalpa Sankalpau. Two Vedyas. So there are actually two Vedyas. So an Ayurvedic Vedya and then a specialist Vedya of Sarpa Vidya. So these two Chikitsakas or doctors, they are Kalpa and Sankalpa, and Kalastu Yama Purusha. The messenger of Yama is time itself, Kala. He symbolizes Kala. So this is the metaphor. The commentary says, you may agree or may not agree with this approach of interpreting. In Kudiyattam, Bhagavad-Ajjukam is performed for all these centuries, maybe for about a millennium. It is being performed there in the temples. So it is performed in a sacred arena. So naturally they will interpret it as a philosophical kind of play. But you may also interpret it as a psychological play and other aspects of human life. You may interpret it. So you may not fully agree with this approach, and there are theatre directors who have unrevealed the other aspects of Bhagavad-Ajjukam. So the question is the identity of human being. Whether his or her body is her identity, or the consciousness is her identity. So the Vedantic view would of course say that the soul is the sole identity, you can say. The soul is the identity of a human being. But how to understand that identity? So unless the soul is in the body, you can't identify. So it is the consciousness and body taken together, then only you can identify a personality. So this question again remains about the identity of a human being. So is the body completely immaterial and consciousness is all? If the body is so immaterial, why the sannyasi takes recourse to entering another body to teach a lesson to his disciple? If the body is so immaterial, he cannot function without the body, and he has to go to another body. And why should at all he go to another body? If he is so liberated person, why should at all he attempt this Parkaya Pravesha? So this Parkaya Pravesha is done always with some motive, and a liberated person should not have any motive. So he has a motive. So if he has a motive, then he is not a liberated soul. So I would be raising this question. So these are the question and the interrelationship of the body and the soul. Okay, so there is a good theatre director, Suri Mohan Kulsreshtha, who performed it, and he interpreted it in a different way, in his own way, and it seems that according to his interpretation, and I agree with him, that this Parivrajaka is not completely a liberated soul, because he is not completely free from worldly aspirations. He is always asking Shandilya to study and to study. And Shandilya is asking him a question, what these studies would lead me to. So he has a kind of attachment to the studies, and he thinks that I must leave a disciple who would continue my line. So this is a sort of attachment. An attachment to the disciple, a desire to create a disciple to live in this world a disciple who would carry his tradition. So this is a kind of attachment. And a sannyasi should not have this kind of attachment too. It may be a very noble kind of attachment. It may be a very praiseworthy desire to reform this ajnani, this ignorant disciple who appears to be a fool, although he is not completely a fool to me. So this question remains. If the tradition and this whole interpretation as per Dingmat Darshani views sannyasi as a completely liberated soul and the symbol of a liberated, symbol of an Atman, and Chandilya is a Jeev, then this question is a pertinent question, that why he is having this attachment towards learning and make his disciple learn. And as I could sense from the performance which was directed by Suri Mohan Kulshrestha, that the sannyasi has a kind of hidden desire to enter the body of Vasant Sena. What sort of body is this? Otherwise, he should be having some kind of curiosity within him, some samskara or some vasana remaining within him. That vasana is within him. So he enters the body of, maybe apparently for a very noble cause, to cure his disciple. But he makes his consciousness in touch with the impure body. He is always talking of purity and impurity, and the body of Ganika may not be pure, and his consciousness goes in that body. It makes association with that body. So there is some hidden desire, maybe some kind of a trace of impression within him to, in the form of a curiosity, to have a look of that body. This everybody may not agree with this approach, but this is a question which remains. And then who is more liberated? In fact, one may ask this question again. So the point about the philosophy of humor that Abhinav Gupta is making there, that a person who can laugh at himself is more liberated than the person who is laughing at others. So sannyasi is always scolding his disciple. He is scorning the others. And the Shandilya is laughing at himself. He knows that I am a fool. I am always hungry. I was born in a poor Brahman family. I couldn't get proper food any time. So for food I am always running. I am this type of person. So he is very clear in his conscience that, okay, I am not a great jnani, I am not a knowledgeable person, and I may not be a liberated soul, but I am after food. Let me have my food. And he can laugh at himself that I am doing all these laughable things. These are very lowly activities of mine. He laughs at himself. So then, from this point of view, the question would be, who is more liberated, the sannyasi or the disciple? So these questions are there, and a lot of discussion can be made. This is not an occasion to go into the details. Some other occasion may be there. It's a philosophical question, and it's a great philosophical play. Its greatness is that you can interpret it on the lines of the whole tradition of Dingmatra Darshani as a great philosophical play with symbols. You can interpret on psychological lines, you can bring in modern psychology, you can interpret it on sociological plane also. So it's a great classic that way. And the author must have been a great philosopher of his times as well, like Bhavabhuti. And a brief note on the printed editions and translations of this play. Quickly we go to slide number 15. So the first printed edition appeared from Jayant Mangalam in 1925, Sanskrit text. Then Bhagavad Ajjukam with Dingmata Darshani appeared in 1948, edited by Anujan Achyatan from Pali Manuscript Library of Trivandrum. Third edition came out, edited by Veturi Prabhakar Shastri. It's a good edition and a kind of critical edition, and it appeared from Mani Manjari Publications by a trust from Hyderabad in 1986. Then the Sanskrit text was also published in Sangamani, a Sanskrit quarterly, in 1979. Then the Hindi translation is there by Nemi Chandra Jain. In Hindi it is very popular. It's a theatre performances of Bhagavad Ajjukam, extremely popular. It's such a delightful play to see its performance. These plays are for performance actually. So you see their real beauty in performance. The Bhanas also that we discussed yesterday, I didn't have any time to discuss the performance aspects of the Bhanas. So I saw the Bhanas on stage. All of the Bhanas are performed. B.V. Karanth, he performed all the 4 Bhanas in a sequence. And the first Bhana is performed with a single character. So the whole environment of the Bhana is created by one character only. In second Bhana, some other characters slowly appear. In third Bhana, again some more appear. And the fourth Bhana, the whole crowd assembles and the whole environment of the city. So the world of Bhana slowly unfolds. This was one performance, but other performances are also. Panprabhatakam is a very powerful play when it is performed in Sanskrit. So the audiences are simply spellbound by each and every sentence the Vita speaks. Is such he just keeps the audiences spellbound by his dialogues. Every sentence is a sheer delight to hear. Same is with this Bhagavad Ajjukam also. So Hindi translations so many times performed. Translation by Nemi Chandra Jain, which is done by several veteran theatre directors. Translation by me also, published in Natyam Quarterly in 29th number. It has also been performed many times. And there is an English translation by, as I refer to, Van Buintenen JAB, under the title The Hermit and the Harlot, published in 1971 in a journal called Mehfil, in its issue centered on a special issue on Sanskrit. So we come to some of the performances of Bhagavad Ajjukam, and very briefly, Bhagavad Ajjukam has been very popular on Kudiyattam theatre, and on modern theatre perhaps the first performance was directed by Shanta Gandhi, who was one of the leading theatre personality of our times, well-known figure in theatre, in the world of theatre. And the performance was given under the auspices of National School of Drama. Then Kavalam Narayan Panikkar is also a well-known theatre person of our times. Then Suri Mohan Kulshrestha, whose performance I have seen, and he also directed it several times, and I also got it performed at Sagar. When I was there, I directed it. In original Sanskrit, the play was performed by the group of our department. Dr. Bal Shastri, who has just retired as professor from Banaras Hindu University, is a well-known scholar of Sanskrit Vyakarana. He was with us at that time. He performed the role of sannyasi. At that time, it was also a memorable performance, although all of the actors were novices. They are completely novices. But the audiences, you see, university professors and students, they could appreciate, and they were simply laughing on the whole situation. They were enamored by the performance in Sanskrit also. So you perform it in Sanskrit, you perform it in any language. It's such a universal play with great appeal to the audience. So I will refer to Suri Mohan Kulshrestha's performance, and he has been invited to perform Bhagavad Ajjukam on several national platforms and on national and international festivals outside India also. He has taken his troupe to perform Bhagavad Ajjukam, and we will have some photographs from that performance. And perhaps from photographs, I have a video also, but there will be no time to show the video. You can have a glimpse how Bhagavad Ajjukam goes on the stage. So we go to slide number 16. This was perhaps the scene in the beginning that both sannyasi and the disciple, they are entering on the stage. So their entry is shown. You can see the way they enter, and the way the charis and the gatis are performed on the stage. When they enter, the characters are staging entry. They are not simply walking, they are performing the entry. Then there is a group, there are some more characters come on the stage. So Ramilak, Vasant Sena in the middle, two maids. We go to slide number 17, two maids on the other corner. And the Shandilya, infatuated and mesmerized in their presence, is seeing them. This is a scene. And again we go to slide number 18. Shandilya is kneeling before his Guru, and the Guru is admonishing him, is trying to teach him. Slide number 19. Shandilya is telling something to his Guru, that I am a hungry person, I always need food. He is giving a kind of rebuke to his Guru. So all these scenes are there. Go to slide number, sorry, this is repeated again, the next slide. And Shandilya is laughing. He is telling, I have been joining various religious orders. I became a Buddhist for food. So all these things he is telling his Guru. Then Guru is giving his sermons to him. Slide number 20 and slide number 21. Shandilya having an eye on the Vasant Sena. You can see how he is looking. And Guru is in a sad mood, that he is not listening to me. And Shandilya is absorbed in seeing Vasant Sena. This was slide number 21, 22. Vasant Sena and the maid, they are dancing. Shandilya is seeing them from that corner. They are dancing and singing. Slide number 22, slide number 23. The dance develops as a peacock dance. So in the performance you can develop the scene of singing and dancing to keep the audience held there. And slide number 24, Ramilak and Vasant Sena. Ramilak are trying to talk to Vasant Sena. She is possessed by the spirit of the sannyasi. Slide number 25, it is repeated. Slide number 26, the Yamaduta appearing, if I identify correctly. Slide number 27, this Yamaduta is taking away the spirit of the soul of Vasant Sena. Then slide number 28, the maid seeing Vasant Sena laying down. Slide number 29, Ramilaka and Vasant Sena in a pose of dance. And this slide number 30, perhaps Yamduta. And slide number 32, Vasant Sena and her mate in the dance posture. So with this we proceed to the next play. The next play is Matta Vilas Prahasan. It is equally a powerful prahasan. Unfortunately, we will not be having to talk in detail about this play. It is also equally popular on the stage. And if there is time, I will talk about the performances. It has been handled by great theatre directors. Matta Vilas is equally symbolic and equally has that profoundness of philosophy and various angles of interpretation. So, author is Pallav King Mahendra Vikram Varman, belongs to 7th century, as I have already told you. The story is like this, that there is a Kapalik. The sect of Kapalikas is referred to, and their ways of living. So that is how the question of an lifestyle is raised in these prasanas also, in both the prasanas, especially in Matta Vilasa. So what should be the way of life? So this is the Kapalik way of life, that they have shunned from all norms of life. So this is a life which doesn't conform to the normal ways of the world. Okay. So Kapalikas lead a different kind of life. The sect of Kapalikas under the Shaiva Shakta philosophy was a well-known sect, and Mahendra Vikram Varman has made a subtle study of that sect. You can interpret the way these Kapalikas are doing their activities on stage in any way. You can take them very seriously. You can find a kind of irony and satire there. You can interpret the whole activities philosophically. So this play is equally great that way, like Bhagavad Ajjukam. So the local is Kanchi, the city of Kanchi. Kapalika with his beloved Dev Soma, because Kapalikas are allowed to keep a lady with them. So Dev Soma and Satya Soma, they live together in their company. They might not have married. This Dev Soma was with some other Kapalika sometimes. She joins Satya Soma now. And this Kapalika has a begging bowl, Kapala, Kappar or Kapala. So both of them are living happily. This Kanchi is a rich city. They can get plenty of food when they go for the alms, and they have their food. And if they go to the Madiralaya, they can have plenty of wine. So they drink and have good food, and they are living a merry life. Nothing to do. They are thanking Lord Shiva, who has shown them this way of life. So this is their life. And they have one Kapala and one Goshranga, a small pot prepared perhaps out of the horns of a cow. So that is used as a water bottle. Okay, and this one Kapala. And they don't have any other property. Food is available, wine is available, and they are happy. This is their life. So they are consuming Panchmakaras. Okay. So they enter, both of them are intoxicated. They are inebriated, you can say. And Satya Soma is so much under the influence of wine that he addresses Dev Soma as Somadeva. So he forgets the real name of his own beloved. So Dev Soma admonishes him that you have become so much drunk that you are even not addressing me by my proper name. So Satya Soma, suddenly aroused from his inebriated stage, he says, okay, I committed a mistake, and now I take a vow to give up wine. Then this Dev Soma says, no, don't do that. Don't quit the lifestyle of a Kapalika because of me. So don't break your penance for me. Don't break your vrata for me, he says. She says, because your vrata is to take wine and good food. And then this Satya Soma becomes very pleased. Okay, you are pleased, I am pleased, no worry. And he eulogizes Lord Shiva. So this shloka on slide number 32 we can read quickly. And he says, this is our lifestyle. Peya sura priyatama mukha mikshaniyam. Drink wine and always keep your eyes on the face of your beloved, priyatama mukh. Grahya subhav lalito vikritascha vesha. Keep the attire which is pleasing, subhav, naturally pleasing, beautiful, and it may be vikrat to others, like the attire of Lord Shiva. Yenedam idrasham adrishyata moksha vartma. Dirghayurastu Bhagwan sa Pinaka Pani. Let that Bhagwan Pinakapani have a long life, who has seen this way, who has seen this path of emancipation or moksha, and who has shown this way of moksha to us. So let him live long life. So in his state of intoxication or inebriation, he is even blessing Lord Shiva that he will live a long life, because he has shown this way of life to us. Then Dev Soma raises some questions, that there are other sects, the Arhatas, the Buddhists, they talk about controlling the sense organs, they talk about Sanyam, and then they talk about the penance by torturing the body. Then Satya Soma says, Shantam Papam. Don't discuss these people. To talk about them is sin in our way of life, in our sect. And why did you bring their names here? And by talking about them, our tongues have become impure. So we should purify our tongues by drinking wine again. So let us go to the Madiralaya and have some more wine. So they walk towards Madiralaya, and they are praising the appearance of that pub. What a beautiful place, it is like a Yajnavat. This Kapalik says. There is no time to read the dialogues. They are drinking wine and they are dancing, as the Kapalikas might be doing in 6th, 7th centuries. And then Devsoma says that we need some snake. We have had enough of wine. Some snake should be there. So Satyasoma comes out of that pub, and he gives a call. Is there somebody? Give us some food, some alms. Some lady, a very faithful lady, a devoted lady, is walking with some food, and she sees that some Pashupata sannyasi is begging for alms. So out of her devotion, she says, Bhagwan, accept this bhiksha. At that time, this Kapalika finds that his kapala, his begging bowl, is missing. In his state of intoxication, he didn't notice that he has left his kapala somewhere. So either that is stolen or that is missing. Then he says, how to accept this food she is giving, and my bowl is not with me. So Devsoma says that this is a Shraddhalu devotee, faithful devotee. We can't reject her offerings. So somehow you accept it. We take whatever we can take in our Goshranga. So we take what she is offering in this Goshranga, and later we will search our Kapala. So here they have that food. They have the food. Then they are frantically in search for the Kapala. Now the question is, Satyasoma is very worried. He says that Kapala is missing. So how can I be a Kapalik if the Kapala is not there? The question about my identity. Can a Kapalika be called a Kapalika if the Kapala is missing? This is the question. So my own identity is lost now, since that begging bowl is not with me. Then they are searching for the Kapala here and there, where we have been, to that place and to that place. Then the scene changes and they have a Buddhist monk coming on the way. The name of the Buddhist monk is Nagsena. He is coming from the house of a rich merchant, having plenty of food in his Kapala. And he has concealed the Kapala by his upper garment, covered the Kapala with his Kashaya Vastra, so that the others do not notice that he is carrying fishes and meat in the Kapala with him. And he is also very greedy of the food, the Buddhist monk. These two, Devsen and Satyasoma and Devsoma, they notice this monk and they find that he is carrying a Kapala and he has covered it with his garment. So he must be a thief. He has stolen my Kapala. Otherwise, why should he cover it? So they ask him to stop and show the Kapala. Then the Buddhist monk says that I cannot show it. In our Sampradaya, we are not allowed to show the bhiksha we get. And I will have it. I will go to my vihara and have it alone. So it is Samvrati Satya, he says. That Kapalika, Satyasoma says that I will make your Samvrati Satya as Paramartha Satya. I will thrash you, I will beat you, and you will have to show the Kapala because it is my Kapala you have stolen. Nagsena is trying to save himself from their attack. They are attacking him, but since they are intoxicated, so in their attempt to attack him, they fall on the ground. Both of them fall on the ground. Nagsena has her eye on the beautiful lady Devsoma, this Buddhist monk. So he is also a lustful person, and he raises Devsoma by grabbing her hand when she falls down. So Satyasoma objects that you have touched my beloved. Why you grab the hand of my beloved? So Nagsena says that it is our duty to raise those who have fallen. We are here to raise the persons who have fallen in this world. So all these dialogues, very interesting dialogues, they go on. And then another sannyasi of Pashupat Sampradaya comes there. So Kapalik Sampradaya and Pashupat Sampradaya, they are different sects. So Babru Kalpa is a sannyasi of Pashupat Kalpa. He arrives. He was ex-lover of Devsoma. Devsoma used to live with him earlier. And he still had an eye on Devsoma. She left him, but she liked Devsoma. So she sees Devsoma with Satyasoma. She stops there, asks them what has happened. They tell him that this Buddhist monk has stolen our Kapala and we are trying to recover our Kapala from him. So, Babrukalpa takes side with these two, Satyasoma and Devasoma. He asks Nagsena, you show your Kapala. If you are not a thief, why are you hesitating in showing this Kapala? So ultimately Nagsena had to show his Kapala and the whole food, meat and fishes in that Kapala. So Devasoma recognizes that his Kapala is not his Kapala, but he says that out of some trick, this Buddhist monk has transformed my Kapala. He has changed the shape and size of the Kapala to carry more food in it. And it is my Kapala, he says. He is intoxicated. He is talking that way. So all of this, Babrukalpa says that go to court. So they proceed by taking that Buddhist monk with them. They are going towards the legal court to file a suit against that Buddhist monk that he has stolen our Kapala. This is the scene on the stage. Meanwhile, some Unmattaka appears on the stage, a mad person. He is holding the real Kapala, which belongs to this Kapalik Satyasoma. So Babrukalpa says, look, he is taking a Kapala. Identify whether it is your Kapala or not. And that mad person says that I found this Kapala in the mouth of a dog. So I snatched it from the dog. If it is yours, you take it away. So they retrieve the begging bowl from that mad person. Everything is settled. The lost Kapala is found, recovered again. And Bharatvakya is there. Bharatvakya is delivered. Let everybody be happy. This is the play. You can interpret the play on various lines. You can interpret it as a great satire on various religious sects of medieval times. This is what Mahendra Vikram Varman intended to do. He was a Vedic, the follower of Vedika system, and is rebuking various sects, various Kaulika sects, various Pashupata and Kapalika sampradayas, and a kind of immoral activities that they are pursuing on the name of dharma, on the name of religion. This way you can interpret. You can also interpret the play on a more profound philosophical basis, that the question again of an identity of a man. What is the identity of a man? His attire, his Kapala, or his consciousness, or all these issues. And what should be an easy way of life? Again, the question which I raised in the beginning. So what is the easy way? Easy way, it is the English word I am using. The Sahaj cannot be translated into other language. So what is the way to reach the status of Sahaj status? This question remains. The question in Bhagavad Ajjukam also remains whether the sannyasi actually reached the state of Sahaj, whether he was free from all the kashayas, and how to reach that state of Sahaja, that state of complete freeness from all the bonds, from all the kashayas, worldly kashayas. So can a man be like that? So can this be the way? Again the question remains. The Kapalikas found their own way, that we will have a very easy life. We are free from all the bondages. What comes, comes. Whatever bhiksha we get, we are happy. We are getting wine, we are happy. This is their way. This may not be liked by others, but this is their way. And the question remains again, what is the way to reach that status of Sahaja? But in the end, I would point it out that both these prasanas, Bhagavad Ajjukam and Matta Vilas Prasanam, they are India's great contribution to theatre culture. They are India's great contribution to world culture. You will not find plays in other languages equaling the heights they reach in performance. When they are performed, they reach such heights. And of Matta Vilas Prasanam also, great theatre directors, they handled it. Kavalam Narayan Panikkar. I saw the performance of Matta Vilas Prasan, directed by Kavalam Narayan Panikkar, and it was done by the repertory of National School of Drama, when manager of the repertory was Manohar Singh. He brought the troupe at Ujjain, and Uttara Bhavkar performed the leading role of Devsoma. So those who are interested in Hindi cinema and Hindi theatre, they might be knowing these names, Uttara Bhavkar and Manohar Singh. And the performance of Matta Vilasa, the way it becomes so hilarious and at the same time so philosophical and raising the core issues. So it's difficult to find such plays in any other language which becomes so hilariously entertaining, so much interspersed with humor, so much impregnated with humor, and at the same time so much revealing so many layers of philosophical and moral questions. So with this we come to the end of this 9th lecture. Thank you very much.